Hikari Shirashika is the name of the young lady, and Takun is a friend of hers from her youth. From Hikari's perspective, it was rather unfair that the publishers only made the manga available online without taking into consideration the fact that some people preferred paperbacks. In spite of this, he assured Hikari that she could just purchase it on her own on the internet. The main way they talked to each other was by chatting away. For 10 years, had been friends since childhood, so it was only natural that they would act like they were a couple. They did this every day, even if it was just sitting quietly together. Being with each other made them feel better. Takun said that Hikari felt heavy after a while. She told him she didn't believe what he said because she had lost 2 kilograms since last month. This was how their friendship worked. They always sat next to each other and didn't pay attention to each other, but the familiar warmth made them feel better. Hikari might not say it, but she sometimes thought about Takun's wide back and how warm and comforting it felt. Then she tried to forget about those things, but she was already blushing, and her face was a deep red color. She had a lot of different feelings and thoughts going through her head. How could Takun not notice the slow but steady progress she was making? She had leaned hard against his back, and each touch made her heart race, but he didn't notice. In those moments, she couldn't believe she was the only one whose heart was beating so fast. Hikari did so when she was 16. She felt these strong emotions with Takun, a friend from childhood. Hikari was always pretty early to get up, but today she was at the train stop even before she usually was. A few commuters were moving around, and the station wasn't too busy. The air was cool and crisp. She looked around, taking in the familiar sights. When she saw her old friend Takun coming up behind the station, it made her eyes light up. She slowly smiled, and the warmth of the sun made her cheeks blush. She always felt better when she saw Takun. His steps were easy, and he walked with a book under his arm and his hair a little messy. His heart skipped a beat, and Hikari wanted to run up to him. "Hikari, good morning. I wasn't ready to see you so early." She greeted him, and Takun was surprised to see her since she is usually early. "Those words are coming from someone who is as early as you," she replied with a smile. Takun chuckled and said, "You only need to go to school 30 minutes later since your place is quite close to school." She quickly made up an excuse, saying, "There's a quiz first thing in the morning, so I need to see a friend's notes." He raised an eyebrow but didn't press further. They walked together towards the school, chatting about their classes and weekend plans. As a mission from her childhood friend's mom, Hikari had to wake him up. Even though she had doubts at first about the sudden Bishoujo game situation, she decided to do the job carefully, precisely, and just a little bit perfectly. She quietly went into his room and gently took off the blanket that was covering him. His hair was tangled, and he looked sleepy. Hikari woke up quickly, groaning as he reached for his blanket because he was startled by the sudden chill. Hikari stayed focused on her task. With practiced speed, she opened the blinds to let in the morning light in the hopes that it would help wake him up. Hikari, on the other hand, threw this idea aside and dismissed the concept of fitting into the image of the innocent childhood friend who takes care of their companion. While she was thinking about various strategies, she briefly considered the possibility of using the threat of kissing him to wake him awake. However, the very thought of doing so caused her cheeks to flush with embarrassment. She swiftly gave up on the notion once she realized that it could potentially cast her in the role of the archetype of a childhood friend who was already dating, which was not something that she felt comfortable with. Waking up and looking at her with such interest, she retorted in a protective manner that she would not be disturbed while she was thinking when he inquired about what she was doing. She pondered that the most natural and pleasant method to wake Takun up would be to simply sleep in the bed next to him. In the end, considering that she was his boy and buddy, her presence was just as important to him as air. However, Hikari was unaware that Takun had already left the bed to change his clothes. She continued to ponder how she could sneak into his bed without him noticing. She considered that speed might be crucial, but she worried that rushing the approach and getting too close to him might overwhelm her heart. Hikari, however, made the decision to not overthink the minor aspects after coming to the realization that opportunities of this nature were few. Her goal was to make Takun more aware of her presence, and she could not be more determined. Without her knowledge, Takun had already completed his bath and was in the process of putting on his clothes. He made his way over to enjoy his breakfast, but Hikari, who was preoccupied with her own thoughts and making preparations, was completely ignorant of his arrival. In the end, Hikari made the decision to go all in, and she crept into his bed with the purpose of bringing his attention to the fact that she was there, even if he woke up. On the other hand, when she turned around to face the bed in order to carry out her plan, she was struck by the fact that it was vacant. She suddenly felt a rush of shame sweep over her, and she sank miserably at the edge of the bed, agonizing over the fact that her attempt had been unsuccessful. Put it another way, Takun lives just next door to Hikari, and the window of his room is located approximately 2 to 3 meters in front of hers. The scene that has been visible from Hikari's window ever since they were in middle school is a familiar one: Takun's study desk, his bed, and a bookcase that is nicely arranged. All of these elements are complemented by the reassuring presence of her childhood buddy. It created this one-of-a-kind dynamic when they were in elementary school. They frequently engaged in passionate chats via their respective windows, and they treasured the unusual connection that existed between them as best friends. But at some point, Takun made a statement that was along the lines of not wanting to be seen changing, and he set up a heavy curtain in front of her view. He also stated that even if something were to happen, he would only reach out to her through the queue. Consequently, the privilege that was exclusively available to a childhood friend of hers has been thrown away. During the time that she is still able to see him through the curtain, she observed that Takun reached for the tissue box and then started to remove his pants. She experienced a great deal of confusion regarding this scene, yet she was able to piece together what she had just witnessed, which consisted of Takun reading a magazine, then reaching out to remove the tissue box, and then taking off his pants. The moment she became aware of what was taking place, she let out a piercing scream that caused Takun to refrain from communicating with her for a period of 1 week. Hikari was having a spirited conversation with her female classmates about the flavor of a first kiss to the taste of lemon with her peers. When she presented her innovative perspective on the matter, during the conversation, one of them baited them by asking if they were talking about situations that were taken directly from old romance manga from their childhood. On the other hand, the third girl in their group chimed in with a more realistic viewpoint, stating that a kiss tastes like whatever the individual had in their mouth most recently. It didn't take long for Hikari to answer, and she said that she shouldn't ruin the ideal image of a magical first kiss. The talk continued with joking and laughter, with each female expressing her personal understanding of the situation from her own point of view. As the girl continued to clarify, the conversation took a more practical turn. She said that in actuality, a kiss largely tastes like saliva, and she emphasized how important it is to manage expectations surrounding the taste or fragrance of a kiss. Her straightforward explanation elicited thoughtful responses from the other students in the class, who started to ponder the specific qualities that characterize a kiss as becoming desired. Some individuals hypothesized that the ire could be attributed to the closeness of the sensation of tongues intertwining, drawing parallels between it and the meeting of sensitive membranes. Towards the end of the conversation, the young lady closed with a reflective tone, implying that in order to properly comprehend activities such as kissing, it is frequently necessary to have direct experience. She provided Hikari with a subtle clue that questioning other people about how it felt would not accurately capture the core of the situation unless she too had experienced it on her own. Nevertheless, she wondered out loud that there might be methods for Hikari to acquire a more correct understanding of kissing, which resulted in an atmosphere that was both curious and reflective among the group. As soon as Hikari learned that there is a way to get a feel for it, she immediately inquired about what she ought to do. The girl asked her to follow her lead, and then she asked her to open her mouth, which she did. The girl then leaned in to put her tongue in, which caused Hikari to immediately realize what was going on and immediately stop what she was doing. Right then and there, she came dangerously close to having a girl from her class steal her very first kiss. 1 week had passed after the embarrassing incident, and Hikari had not received any communication from Takun since then. In spite of the fact that she had no intention of going to his room, Takun's mother had happened to run into her on her way back from school and made a comment about how she has been absent from their home as of late. A hasty justification was soon concocted by Hikari, citing her upcoming examinations and other obligations. She was advised to wait in Takun's room as he would be returning in a short while, so she had no choice than to agree. She made her way into Takun's room, but she found it uncomfortable, and on top of that, she could not help but stare at the bed, to which she wondered about what Takun was imagining when he was lying there. She recalled that he was reading, so she searched under the bed. On the other hand, the mere idea of it caused her to flush, and she pondered the question of what she would do with it in the first place, even if she were to discover it. On the other hand, it is not yet the right time for her to go on the emotional roller coaster that is associated with his fetishes. She looked everywhere in the room, including the trash bin, which was empty, and she found nothing. But then she came to the realization that if she continued to engage in all of these questionable actions, even if she had been his childhood friend, she would be kicked out of his room. She also realized that being kicked out of his room would possibly be the worst possible outcome, since he might eventually become repulsed by her. Almost immediately after that, she started having some intimidating thoughts about herself and Takun, and she quickly tried to reprimand herself for having those emotions. While everything was going on, Takun arrived at his house and was informed that Hikari was in his room. After this, they were able to find a way to make up for their differences. Hikari and Takun were spending their typical time together in Takun's room. During the time that they were making themselves comfortable in the warm environment, Takun reached for what he believed to be his own tea. "Oh, I'm sorry, Hikari." He hastily apologized as he put the tea down on the table, gave him a gentle smile, and reassured him, saying, "It's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about me sharing." On the other hand, her heart was teeming with a variety of feelings on the inside. It is a little late to care about it now, but Takun remarked that it was 10 years ago when she said that she had always sipped his juice when they were children. Since then, she continued to say that she had always done so. Hikari was aware of this as well as the fact that it now has a totally different connotation. Yet she chose to drink some of Takun's milk tea because she believes that this is a once-in-a-thousand chance that she cannot afford to miss, and she justified her decision by stating that it would bring them back to a state of equality. However, the reason she did what she did was to learn about the true flavor of the first kiss. She recalled what her classmates had said about the flavor of a first kiss, and she was aware that there is a distinction between a direct kiss and an indirect kiss. Then, when she had finished drinking the milk tea, she remarked on how sweet it is. Takun responded by adding that she was only saying so after she had finished drinking the entire thing. He then inquired about how long she intends to continue drinking the milk tea, which is considered to be the most detrimental to one's diet. In response, Takun stated that he is still developing and that he requires as much energy as he can get his hands on. Nevertheless, the first kiss that Hikari receives in a roundabout way tastes like milk tea. As Hikari stood there fidgeting at the window, she could feel Takun's look of anticipation directed towards her. In spite of the fact that they were normally able to talk about insignificant topics with ease, she realized that she was unable to speak. A daring mission had been entrusted to her by her friends, and it was to reveal her feelings to Takun during the course of this weekend. They were of the opinion that it was time for her to make a leap forward, and they encouraged her to make a change that she was aware she required. Inwardly, Hikari mustered the bravery to inquire of Takun whether he would be interested in going out this weekend. Nevertheless, the words stayed confined within her thoughts indefinitely. She fought with herself, trying to get her mouth to move, but her tongue could not move because it was heavy with uncertainty. She was unable to comprehend why her words were stuttering at this very moment. Takun shut his window after assuring Hikari that he was sorry for the inconvenience of having to take a shower, per his mother's request, and wishing her a good night. Shortly after that, he was supposed to get a text message from Hikari, in which she stated that she had something significant to convey to him. It came as a surprise to Takun when she suddenly spoke with him, so he called out to her from his room and encouraged her to proceed with the sharing, that he did not need to rush her about what she wanted to say. A text message was sent back by Takun, who was interested and possibly a little bit impatient. He mentioned that he had been waiting for some time and that she had not yet responded. Without being deterred, Hikari remained steadfast and responded to his text message by stating that she would have spoken her views to him if he had simply waited for an additional 3 seconds. Hikari finally got up the nerve to ask Takun out on a date after 30 minutes of back and forth texting between the two of them. The exchange lasted for a while, with both of them trading texts back and forth. As she anxiously waited for his reaction, her nervousness caused her heart to race with eagerness. During a recollection of their youth, Hikari discovered Takun crying and inquired about the things that had caused him to be so terrified. Despite the fact that she was perplexed, Hikari was eager to soothe him. She reasoned that in movies, if characters venture into a forest, it is almost a given that monsters will appear. Despite the fact that Takun was still obviously shaken, he admitted that he had never before watched a horror movie, which made the experience much more horrifying for him. It was during this time that Hikari found herself reminiscing about the past and thinking about how Takun had always been to her like a younger brother, particularly up to the time when they graduated from middle school. Not until approximately a year ago did she start to observe him differently. Hikari couldn't help but laugh at her previous perspectives on romantic relationships as she reflected on her past experiences. She recalled how, when she was a child, whenever love sequences happened in films, dramas, comics, or anime, she would sarcastically say to herself, "Here it comes," anticipating the cliches and predictable situations that would occur. The thought that she would fall in love with someone like Takun, and that was the reason why she never understood its attractiveness, and she has never experienced the heart-fluttering sensations from those images. She has never had the opportunity to experience them. The fact of the matter was she had just developed feelings for a boy, but she was unable to comprehend the reasons behind her feelings for such a man. On the other hand, she will be going out on a date for the very first time in her life with the guy that she has feelings for.